I had a landowner referred to me by a friend, a former coworker, and he had bought some property, some vacant property along Highway 395. It's over on the west side of Nevada. And he was calling me for some help. He was in a squabble with the neighbor over an access road. It was a driveway. So there's this long driveway that leaves 395 and kind of wanders up the hills. And this neighbor owned a parcel that was up the hillside and used this road that was his driveway to get in and out of his parcel. The person that called me owned his parcel, actually touched 395, so he had frontage. He had frontage on the highway, and it was pretty clear just looking at some satellite photography and some of the information on the tax assessor's map and some of the survey maps that have been done in the area that the physical road driveway was not inside of the easement. Parts of it were, but there were parts that weren't even close. And this is something we actually run into on a fairly regular basis in my practice. It typically happens in more rural areas, and it typically happens in areas with rougher terrain. And basically, the problem is, somebody creates an easement for the access road, but that's not where the road gets built. And the road gets built where it's convenient to build the road based on the terrain, and for whatever reason there's a disconnect there between the design of the road and the easement creation, or maybe there isn't even a road design, maybe it's just somebody with a bulldozer. He doesn't know where the easement's at, the easement doesn't get staked. Long story short, road gets built outside of the easement. So this gentleman had bought this lot. He was looking at some of the records and realized this guy's driveway wasn't in the easement. He tried to start blocking the road. They were getting, words were being exchanged. Heated words were being exchanged. So he called me for some help, and we ended up not working for the gentleman. We looked at some records and did some other stuff, but I basically told him, I think you need to get along with your neighbor. In the meantime, what you need to do is you need to adjust the easement so that it fits the physical road. I told him what it was going to take to do that. He wasn't interested in paying to have that done. Some people I can't help. But I wanted to share that story with you. Why? I wanted to share that story because I want to talk about some of the lessons that we learned from that. And so I've got 3 lessons four lessons that I want to share with you. When you think about that story, happens a lot. I get at least a few of those calls every year dealing with the specific issue of an easement that is not in a physical access road that is not in the easement. So what are the lessons? Number 1, you can catch problems before you buy a property with some minimal effort. So I looked at the land records and a little bit of satellite photography for maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes on it, and I immediately identified the problem. I already knew, I've seen it many times, and I was like, I had the guy on the phone, and I was like, I know exactly what the problem is, what you're dealing with. So if you're a broker or a real estate agent, you should be looking for that stuff when you represent a buyer. And I think if you don't, you're probably being negligent. And so you want to be careful about that. And if you're a broker or an agent, you don't know how to do that, work with a surveyor that can help you. And if you're a broker or an agent, you call my shop, we're not going to charge you for that. Like, I'll take a quick look. I tell people all the time, call me, call my team. We'll take a quick look at some property with you for 10 or 15 minutes on the phone. And we'll let you know if we think there's any issues. So here's a guy that bought a piece of property, probably wasn't well represented by his broker. Now he's got a problem, right? And it's not going to be cheap. It's not going to be cheap to fix. Here's the second lesson. Easements cause a lot of problems. I would say we do a fair amount of expert witness work at my company. I would say 70% of the expert witness work that we do is related to disputes over easements. So it's not actually related to disputes over what we call fee parcel boundaries, the actual ownership, limits of ownership. Most of my expert witness work deals with easements and easement rights. So why is that? That's a whole separate video. I think I've got a separate video that talks about why easements cause more problems. But I'll just give you the quick 3 reasons why. Easements are not typically mapped in the same way that fee parcels are. At least the fee parcels are shown approximately on the assessor's plat. A lot of easements aren't even shown on the assessor's plat. Easements are invisible. There's usually not physical occupation that shows where the easement is. So on a fee parcel, you usually have fences or walls or some other things like that. That's not always true, but a lot of cases it is. A lot of easements, there's no occupation. That's especially true with underground utilities. And then even when there is physical evidence of the easement location, for example, this access road, driveway, it may not be in the right spot. So that's another reason easements cause problem. And then the third reason is just easements are poorly written, a lot. Utility companies especially are notoriously bad at their easements. They do a crappy job of writing their easements. Easements are not surveyed as much as the fee parcel. A lot of other people, easements are just kind of thrown in as an afterthought. Just the level of care is not taken with them. And so we find more problems with easements. So the third lesson is that the connection between the legal aspect of a real property and the physical aspect of a real property right is critically important. So in that example I gave you on Highway 395, see, the physical was disconnected from the legal, right? So the legal right of access had been disconnected from the physical right of access. Anytime you get a disconnection like that between the physical and the legal in real property rights, you're going to have problems. And so that's a good lesson from this story. The final lesson, the fourth one, is that you should always understand the easements that both benefit and serve a parcel of real property before you buy or sell it. Okay? And I'm going to say that one more time because it's so important. You should always understand the easements that both benefit and serve a parcel of real property before you buy or sell it. Okay? And if you're a broker or an agent, I think you have a responsibility to make sure that your client understands that. Okay? Especially when you represent a buyer. So, and those aren't the same things. The easements that burden the parcel aren't the same as the easements that serve a parcel. So, what that means is you got to have a title report. You got to know how to read a title report. You got to have the easement deeds. You got to, you might have to work with a surveyor to understand where those easements are at on the property. Save your client some pain. Avoid problems with easements. Work with the surveyor to understand the easement rights related to a piece of property before it's bought or sold.